A friend who I had served with called me out of the blue one day and said, "Hey, Goldie, I joined a neo-Nazi organization and I want you to help me take them down from the inside." So I did. It began as a side project after I was laid off due to the COVID shutdowns in 2020. For months, from inside this fascist group, we were feeding information to a journalist at BuzzFeed, trying to expose this far-right group that we feared would take advantage of election night chaos during the pandemic. Patriot Front was the first group that we cracked open. BuzzFeed published our findings right before the election, and I live tweeted the fallout from inside their systems as they scrambled to figure out who'd expose them. After that, they went underground for months. By election night, I had already embedded it inside several other extremist groups, including a militia called the 3% Security Force, led by a veteran named Chris Hill out of Georgia. Hill goes by the call sign General Blood Agent. I'd been working with the FBI for years by this point, sharing with them information on foreign influence campaigns that were targeting veterans, while I was working in D.C. as a policy wonk, researcher, and lobbyist for a major veteran service organization. But by the fall of 2020, my focus had shifted entirely to homegrown threats. It was a natural evolution of the work I had been doing for a half-decade at that point. I had been watching, kind of helplessly, as veterans and people who like to cosplay as veterans started off their radicalization with Charlie Kirk and Ben Shapiro videos on Facebook and ended up in the Proud Boy to Fascist Pipeline on Telegram. When Hill and his top lieutenants vetted me into their heavily armed, incredibly stupid fascist street gang, they asked me if I'd be ready and willing to pull the trigger, to kill an American if we faced off with Antifa in a protest. I said yes, and they let me into their private systems, where I would record their conversations and slowly work to put together pieces to get past the ridiculous call signs and figure out their real identities. The information that they shared with each other was often very self-incriminating. For example, a member of the 3% Security Force, a veteran, showed up armed at a location where voting machines were stored. He bragged to me, on tape, about how election workers fled the building in fear when they saw him show up with his AR-15 and when he started peering through the windows of the building. From his perspective, their evacuating the building and speeding off in their cars was proof of their guilt in an election conspiracy theory. For context, this is around the time that Trump called Georgia's Secretary of State and demanded that he find thousands of votes to help him cheat and flip Georgia. In the weeks leading up to the certification of the election of Joe Biden, I watched these same men live stream outside the Georgia governor's mansion, chanting threats like "traitors get the rope." They hunted for pro-democracy protesters, and while Atlanta PD mostly kept them apart, it didn't stop all of the violence. Meanwhile, these militias were training with live-fire drills and rehearsing clearing the Capitol. They meant it. On January 6, 2021, I was watching everything. Multiple devices, multiple streams across multiple groups. I had seen the insurrection coming, but nothing could have prepared me for actually watching the live streams that day. It brought me back to when I was 16, helplessly watching as towers that were a permanent fixture in the skyline I grew up with crumbled into smoke. Our country forever scarred and changed for the worse. But I didn't have any guilt after 9/11. I was a kid. I hadn't seen it coming, and there's nothing I could have possibly done to have prevented it. January 6th was different. I had warned the FBI. I had risked my life infiltrating extremist groups so that I could record their criminal conspiracies. I submitted my evidence to my handlers, not just filing stuff on a tip line that no one reads. But no matter what I did, I couldn't stop it. It wasn't good enough. And what I witnessed that day shook me to my core. January 7th, 2021 was the first time that I took a sick day in as long as I could remember. I had friends on the ground, friends who were in the building, friends who were targets of the bloodthirsty MAGA mob. As tough as that was for me, I can't imagine what it must have felt like to actually be there, looking these maniacs in the face. And I am forever grateful to the patriots who stood their ground that day and protected our democracy from collapse. And I want to be clear, that's exactly what they did. The goal of the insurrectionists was to end our republic, to kill our elected officials, to install Trump as a dictator. One of those people who put his body between the mob and democracy that day is my guest on this episode, former Capitol Police Officer Harry Dunn. He spent nearly 15 years serving in the Capitol, including during one of the most violent days in modern American history. Since then, he's testified before Congress, run for office, and launched a new mission to defend democracy across the country. Now he's here with me to talk about what it means to go from holding the line on January 6th to going on offense every day after. So, Officer Dunn, Harry Dunn, one of the heroes of the January 6th committee. I want to thank you for being with us for our third episode of On Offense. I've been very deliberate about the guests that I've been asking to come on in these early episodes as people are learning about what this show is. And one of the reasons that I wanted to have you on so soon is because of the conversation that we had just last week on my other podcast where I'm a co-host, the Find Out podcast.
Yeah.
We had talked about your experience on January 6th and everything beyond that. But this show is about going a little bit deeper. So as someone who wore the uniform for so much of your life, can you tell me how it feels to watch these, I can't even call them LARPers anymore because they're actually causing harm to people. What does it feel like to watch these ICE guys going out?
Yeah.
They are living a white supremacist's fantasy. I have been infiltrating extremist organizations for over half a decade now, and I can tell you this is not an exaggeration. I'm not making shit up.
Yeah.
Like what ICE is doing today is what neo-Nazis were daydreaming about and didn't believe was possible a year ago. So how does what ICE is doing today, how does that impact you personally? Does it make you feel different about your past service? Does it make you wish that you had made different choices in the past?
I was lucky to not have the negative interactions with law enforcement that I saw a lot of my friends or a lot of people in the community have. I was lucky. I didn't have that, but I knew that they existed. So I didn't go into policing with rose-colored glasses thinking that, hey, this police is everything and this is what we need. No, I realized there was a problem here and we need better people in those positions. Now, a lot of people who are waking up to this reality that law enforcement, or specifically ICE, may not be there to protect and serve, but rather to terrorize and scare the living crap out of people. People that are waking up to that reality probably didn't have the experience to ever see a bad cop or a corrupt cop or a power-hungry law enforcement official or corrupt officials. I've seen it. Like I said, I was fortunate not to experience it, but I knew that they existed. So I didn't go into the business, so to speak, with these rose-colored glasses and this shock and awe moment where, oh my gosh, I can't believe this happening. So no, I'm not jaded. I'm just, there are bad players in all careers. And in law enforcement, when you have somebody like Donald Trump giving an order to law enforcement in the Oval Office, I think it was August 11th, he said, go do whatever the hell you want to do.
They start spitting in their face. And I said, you tell them, you spit and we hit. And they can hit real hard. It's a disgusting thing. I've watched that for years, for 3-4 years. I've watched them. The police are standing, and they're told, don't do anything under any such, and you can see they want to get at it. and they're standing there and people are spitting in their face and they're not allowed to do anything. But now they are allowed to do whatever the hell they want.
That's an exact quote from the president to law enforcement, and that gives them cover to act as the terrorist we've seen them being, terrorizing communities, whether it be North Carolina, whether it be Los Angeles, whether it be Memphis, Chicago. They are all over the place. And they're not just rounding up gangbangers. They're terrorizing people that are out there landscaping in the middle or laying asphalt in the middle of their jobs. And it's, listen, if we want to address and this is something, obviously I don't want to get too far off topic, but if we want to address immigration, then let's do that. Like, it shouldn't take somebody 20 years to become a contributing member of society. Let's cut the freaking red tape and let's let people come in here and contribute to our economies, to let them make a living for themselves, which we see that majority of them do. No, I am all for getting the bad players and the bad actors out of there. The drug dealers, the smugglers, the killers, the rape. Get them all. Get them all out of here and let them go be held accountable in their countries. But the everyday immigrants, which a lot of the people that make up this country came from immigrants, whether you're an American citizen or not. Let's be clear about that. Hell, everybody that's not an indigenous person is an immigrant or descendant of an immigrant in some capacity. So, like I said, I don't want to get on a soapbox too much about that, but it didn't make me lose faith. It just made me realize there's still work to be done.
Can you talk a bit about how we can change what ICE is? And one of the things that I am always saying on social media is about how people like Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth and RFK Jr., and Elon Musk, they all need to be held responsible.
Sure. Not
just at the ballot box, but they need to pay for the damage that they have done, especially when it veers into outright criminality.
Yeah.
What I haven't heard a lot of people talking about, and perhaps this is because people feel like they're untouchable, is justice being found for all of these victims of excessive force.
Yeah.
What we're seeing on TV today and on social media are clear escalations into not just violence, but property destruction that is completely unnecessary to enforce immigration law or any other law.
Yeah.
What can our country do to hold these out of control ICE agents accountable, or can we not?
Well, yeah, it's crazy because you see these guys literally playing Grand Theft Auto. They're in their cars and they're ramming stop signs. They're running over fire hydrants. They're ramming cars they're running around with like mass vigilantes. And yes, that is not, there are other ways to terrorize people and disappear people off the streets besides doing that. Like you mentioned, excessive force. In law enforcement, a lot of times excessive force complaints were dealt with internally. Officers were suspended, their badges, their guns were taken, their credentials, you were put on desk duty or whatever. This administration doesn't believe in that. We had at Capitol Police, we had a policy that said we couldn't wear masks to cover our face. Now, obviously, somebody wearing a baklava, whatever you pronounce it, during 20-degree weather is a lot different than in 80 degrees you out there masked up. Now, obviously, there's a difference. But you couldn't be out there covering your face up. And that was a department policy, but it wasn't against the law. So who enforces department policy? It starts at the head, Kristi Noem. She don't care about, she's encouraging people to do that. So there's no accountability at the department level. Now, these people that are clearly breaking the laws, it's going to be up to local law enforcement to bring charges, and state attorneys generals, which we've seen a lot of attorneys generals across the country are fighting back. They're filing lawsuits to have them removed, but that's not settling the case of them terrorizing and committing crimes. So I know there's a lot of cover. Qualified immunity comes into play when you're talking about law enforcement under the scope of their responsibilities, but there still doesn't cover them for being civilly sued. And I believe that we need to be seeing a lot more of that. Unfortunately, those type of lawsuits cost money and resources that the average person being targeted does not have. But when you have the full Department of Justice and the FBI and Homeland Security's budget, it's tough to fight against. So I just think it's going to take a couple brave individuals to continue to come forward and not let it go. Not just say, hey, I filed a complaint with their office. No, you need to file a lawsuit in the courts, in the civil courts, and take them to court for breaking the law. Now, obviously, like I said, if they're doing their job, then sure, it's qualified. They got cover there. But breaking the law, there's no cover for breaking the law as a law enforcement official.
Can you say a little bit more about qualified immunity and what that means for the lay person who may have heard it but isn't really familiar about what it means, especially in the context of the way that ICE is operating?
Sure. So what it basically means in a simple sense is it gives cover to law enforcement for being sued, for being prosecuted while doing their job. Now, like I said, you got to specify, breaking the law does not qualifies that. So there are things that are against department policy, and there are things that are against the law. Like, for example, I'll give a good example here. Capitol Police and most departments, police departments across the country, prohibit warning shots from a firearm. Like you see somebody, then it's a ruckus going on, and you pull out your pistol or your revolver, whatever, and you shoot around in the air. That's a warning shot. Now, while not illegal, it's against department policy. So now, if there was something that was illegal that an officer did, qualified immunity does not cover illegality, but it may cover something that may get you civilly sued. So I think that's one of that's I think the best way I can elaborate on qualified immunity.
So one of the things that I can't really wrap my head around is the scale of the problem, right? There are so many incidents that we see online that are recorded. That's probably a tiny fraction of all of the examples of things like excessive force and law-breaking behavior by ICE that is actually happening out there. Yeah. That is happening to people who don't feel safe in this country for very good reasons, and probably don't feel safe filing complaints or testifying or signing up to even be a witness at an unrelated hearing. So what does our country do, assuming there's a blue wave like a lot of people are predicting in 2026, and if Democrats take back the White House in 2028?
Sure.
Do we start a commission? Can you tell us, do you think that something like the January 6th committee that you were very closely involved in as a witness, is that the type of thing that we need to do to kind of move past this? Do we need to have a commission, or does it have to be all internal? So do we have to have a new department head at the Department of Homeland Security to do something that is just within the single department?
Sure. I think in the simplest form and the simplest way to answer this is absolutely. You have to clean house, because everybody that's involved in this administration, whether it be a secretary at DHS, Department of Homeland Security, or whether it be the head of it, they are complicit because they are allowing it to happen, or whether they're allowing, even if they're not in a position to do anything, they are standing by and letting it happen when not doing anything or speaking out against it. Now, listen, I understand people's careers are at stake, and a lot of times, most of these people, obviously besides the bad actors, they are just career public servants, and they are, whether it be entering time and attendance or getting healthcare benefits. I'm not talking about those individuals, but people in a position to make some kind of decision. You have to clean house, because it's a mindset. It's an ideology. And a lot of times people say, how do you defeat an ideology? Like, you can't drop a bomb on an ideology. You can't put a bullet in. No, you can't do that. So how do you get rid of a mindset? You just have to remove it. It's kind of like the cancer. You cut the cancer out and you just remove it. They can have no, there's no place for that. And we're seeing that, but in reverse form, because it's kind of what Donald Trump has done. Donald Trump has cut out what he views as a cancer and installed only loyalists that want to do what he wants them to do, period. So yes, you have to get rid of the heads. You have to get nobody from this administration, not one person needs to be retained if and when the Democrats take back the White House in 2020. Or hell, not even the Democrats, just a common sense person who actually believes in the Constitution and democracy. I think that's the bar now. Who believes in the separation of power, who believes in the rule of law, who believes in the Constitution, who believes in the courts, following courts' orders and laws. Whether that's a Democrat or I don't even want to call him Republican because we don't see him anymore. But somebody with conservative views, we'll just use that instead. But I think that's the bar now. But I think in 2026, with the majority, the Democrats have the opportunity to, and like you said, hopefully a blue wave. And we're going to be fighting for our asses, fighting our asses off, excuse us, to go get that done. But Congress controls the purse. And the easiest way, simply put, to stop Donald Trump is control one chamber of Congress, whether that's the Senate, whether that's the House. If we get both, amazing. And then it's just going to be a stalemate cold turkey for 2 years. And you know what? Maybe that's it's kind of like putting the country into a medically induced coma. You put it into a medically induced coma for 2 years so Donald Trump can do no more harm than what he's already doing. And you know what? A lot of people would suffer, but I think more people would suffer even more with Donald Trump free at the helm to do whatever he wants for 2 more years. And I'm speaking obviously after 2026.
Yeah, I've been of the mind that that Democrats, despite everything, now 10 years of us, becoming a more authoritarian country, that there are still a lot of Democrats in office who don't seem to be taking this seriously enough. This year, 2025 started with Donald Trump doing his State of the Union or his congressional address, and Democrats were holding up signs saying this is not normal. And I think that at least the base responded with like, are you kidding? Is that all you're fucking doing? Just protesting with a sign silently? If I can jump in on that real quick, let me talk about that, because I do believe that there's a listen, everybody is not going to be out there screaming F you and protesting. There are a lot of even killed people, whatever the term is, people out there who aren't of the mindset of screaming and raising hell and, doing. And those people should not be minimized as they're not fighters and stuff like that. I mean, one of the most effective members of Congress I know, her name is Lauren Underwood from Illinois, and she is just get stuff done. I've never seen her raise her voice. I've never seen her scream, but she is just so effective and efficient the way she does. And, she'll speak out against it, but she's not out there creating those sound bites and those, but she's actually trying to get stuff done. So I do believe that there's a space for those individuals. But like you said, at the same time, all you're going to do is kind of hold a sign. It's bad optics, right? But when people actually start to see, hey, we need X, Y, and Z. And that's one of the reasons, honestly, why I ran for Congress. Because, I believe we need fighters in this moment and not people that are career politicians and, like we got to fight fire with people. I fuss at people for using that fight fire with fire thing. No, you fight fire with water. Like that's literally what you do. Like you don't throw fire on fire. Like, no, you throw water on it. But you need people that are fighters in this moment that are going to just do whatever it takes to stop the fall of our democracy. And you know what? That coalition includes people that are even kiltered and aren't just hotheads ready to go out there and say any and everything. But I feel like it's a coalition that's needed. You need a coalition made up of all those people. Because like I said, there are some very mild-mannered
meek, very efficient ones that I would take any day over some of the firebrands, so to speak, that we have.
How do you think that this dynamic is going to change after what just happened to Mark Kelly? Senator Mark Kelly has been is getting investigated by the Department of Defense. That the drunken weekend Fox News host Pete Hegseth is leading and calling the Department of War, even though that's not its name. I kind of think that this investigation is a good thing.
Yeah.
In a way, I think that Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth have gone too far in a way that is going to establish a precedent that perhaps Democrats can use in showing that, they're going to take the long arm of the law, whether it's the UCMJ or the criminal code or creative ways that Congress can go after these folks. I kind of think what's happening to Mark Kelly is going to scare people into, and again, talking about members of Congress, into a little more action. Do you see this the same way? Did
you see that Senator Ruben Gallego's response? And you know what? Let's be clear. How did Mark Kelly find out about this investigation? Through Twitter. That's how they're announcing investigations now. But shout out to Ruben Gallego, the senator from Arizona, the junior senator that sits with Mark Kelly from Arizona. And he quote, "Fuck your investigation." And Ruben Gallego is a proud veteran of the Marine Corps. I'm about to say, I bet he's going to kick my butt if I got it wrong, man. But yes, I do believe also that this is a good thing because these courts, I still believe in the courts, I guess, the lower courts, not the Supreme Court. But I still believe in the courts actually, but look at the rule of law and understand, because let's go over every word that Senator Mark Kelly said and Alyssa Slotkin and a host of other congressmen and women that said, we want you to refuse illegal orders, which literally is, I don't know if word for word that's in the Constitution, but your job is to, you cannot, it's against the law to refuse to carry out an illegal order. So, they're encouraging them to follow the law. So yes, bring some transparency, bring some light on the illegal orders that this administration, this regime is doing. Pete drunk Seth, like you just said, and Donald Trump. I think it would be great because they think that they can do whatever. And we saw it earlier in the week where with Letitia James and James Comey, their charges are now dismissed because the administration is playing fast and loose and just doing any old way to try to get some type of retribution for Donald Trump. Not because these individuals are criminals. They're just throwing anything at the wall and hope that it sticks. So I am of the belief also, Kris, that this should come to light. And let's go ahead and set the precedent for military men and women who also are congressmen and women telling troops to not follow illegal orders. Let's go ahead and set that precedent.
Everyone who's ever been through basic training knows this. This is not a new concept. You are not just able to reject an illegal order. You are responsible for rejecting unlawful orders. And this is not just something that's uniquely American. This is goes back to the Nuremberg trials.
Yeah.
When the Nazis tried to say, "Oh, I was just following orders," that didn't absolve them of committing some of history's greatest crimes. So when Donald Trump is basically trying to stoke interstate wars by taking the National Guard from Texas and dumping them off into Illinois or Washington State, every service member, when they're on, especially when they're federalized and they're on Title X orders, they need to know that it is their responsibility to be able to identify what is an illegal order and to refuse that. because if they don't, they will be held responsible. The Uniform Code of Military Justice and case law are very, very, very clear about that.
But also, we need to do that before it's too late, because like you just said earlier in the show, you have people out there LARPing as ICE agents and cosplaying. Let's be clear. There are individuals in the armed services, whether it be the National Guard or any of the major branches of the service, the military. There are people out there that join it for the wrong reasons, who look for the cover that Donald Trump is giving to go out there and basically do whatever they want. Now, like I said, there are majority, 99.9% of the men and women of the armed forces believe in that oath. They take it serious, and it's more ironclad than anything they've ever uttered out their mouth before, those words. And I know that just from personal experiences growing up on a military base, my father being in the military. My first job was at the commissary, so dealing with active and retired military men and women, and just seeing how personal that oath that they take. I don't believe that any of them see the congressman or the senator's words harmful or anything further from what they've heard going through basic training when they take their oath.
How is it, do you think, that Donald Trump has claimed the mantle so successfully, even after January 6th, of being the law and order guy? Is that something that cops still believe? I'm worried that today's police force is being polluted the same way that today's military is. While yes, everybody who serves in the military is honorable until proven otherwise.
Sure.
It is an honorable choice to serve your country. But people who are enlisting in the military today at 18 years old, Donald Trump sprung onto the national scene of politics when they were 8 years old.
Yeah.
So their version of normal is nothing like what ours was when we were growing up, when you joined the force, when I joined the Army. Do you worry now that policing in the United States is forever tainted because of the normalization of Donald Trump and his ability to somehow convince police, a lot of police, if not the majority, that he is truly their friend?
Well, that's the thing. I don't believe that. Well, any common person can see he's not their friend. Anybody with a little bit of common sense and just not even really be educated, just a little bit of common sense. See, his actions tell you everything that he needs. The problem is that police departments and military organizations are microcosms of society. And just because you join a police force or a branch of the service, that does not absolve you from being apolitical. Now, people have political beliefs, people have political values that they stand with, they uphold, that they believe in. Those don't go away when you come into your job or you come into, once you take that oath, it doesn't go away. And a lot of people that gravitate towards the careers are already right-leaning as it is. For whatever reason, I don't know. People, you could say the same reason why do black people smoke menthol cigarettes. Like, it's a stereotype, right? Like, why do Republicans like being cops or law enforcement? Well, I don't know. We'll delve down that in another episode, right? But it exists. The problem is, you're supposed to be apolitical when doing your job. Sure, you're right. But when you have somebody that's not apolitical running your job, like Pete Hegseth is running the Department of Defense, and he is not apolitical. But military men and women are supposed to be apolitical. So how do you separate the two? Now, I can't speak for the military, but I know in law enforcement, cops and law enforcement, the FOP and all these, the Department of Sheriffs or whatever it's called, the chair of sheriffs, or they get upset when they are politicized. And you know what? They should not be politicized. Cops and law enforcement shouldn't be by Democrats or Republicans. But at the same time, how can cops get upset about being politicized when they are openly endorsing political candidates? The FOP in Donald Trump's last 3 elections endorsed Donald Trump in all 3 elections. And then in the same breath, have the nerve to get upset about politicizing police. Well, stay out of politics then, if that's the case. Don't endorse a candidate. Don't endorse.
And the FOP is the Fraternal Order of
Fraternal
Police.
Order of Police, which is the largest union for police across the country, largest and oldest union of which I was a member of, which I was disgusted that they endorsed Donald Trump, which a lot of officers were, but majority of the members are okay with it. And it's such a divisive time. I was really disappointed at the FOP, and I've spoke about that ad nauseum, about how disappointed I was with that Fraternal Order of Police and how they should stay out of it. But to address your question, I don't know how you fix it, because you can't just tell people to check their politics at the door. It's a great way to think when you're doing your job, but the people's political alignments a lot of times come from their values. And you're not going to check your values at the door. You may not mention Kamala, you may not mention Biden, you may not mention Trump while doing your job, but your values are reflective of the way one of those individuals named thinks and operates. And that's a bigger problem, and maybe not a realistic expectation about people leaving their politics at the door.
Why do you think the FOP, the Fraternal Order of Police, continues, or in the first place, endorsed Trump back in 2015, 2016, when he was, I guess some people could say they didn't know what he was going to turn into, but he was a felon with 34 felonies, and they still endorsed him.
Yeah.
Is it racism? Is it the idea that he's going to strengthen qualified immunity and allow cops to break the law and be held unaccountable? What benefit does the Fraternal Order of Police see in having a felon who tried to end our democracy running our country?
I just think it goes to the bigger picture of his supporters just happen to be police. They love the idea. They don't want to see weakness. They don't want to see compassion. They don't want to see empathy. They want to see strength. I mean, it's fucking called the Department of War now instead of actually the Department of. They want to that stuff means something to them. You see cops walking down the street with the Punisher logos instead of. What if a cop walked down with a Velcro patch on his vest that had a heart on it, or like that? You're looked at. Oh, you weak. You're soft. But literally, law enforcement is known as public servants. So you're there to serve people, and you go in your job with a mindset of service. And it's unfortunate that a lot of police officers do not have that mindset, that empathy. They go in there and try to let us do our job. Let us do whatever we got this. They loved it. They rejoiced when Donald said, do whatever the hell you want. Now our hands are untied. What does that mean? Like, y'all can do whatever you want without any consequence? That's literally what our hands are finally untied now. That's what that means. You can do whatever you want. And that's not okay. But there are members of law enforcement that celebrate that the FOP celebrates that. Now, listen. The Democratic side, I think, shot themselves in the foot, metaphorically speaking, when they had the rhetoric, and it wasn't all of them, but it was a few that kept saying defund the police, abolish the police. Like, that's bad messaging. And I'm liberal as hell. And I believe in police reform. I believe in criminal justice reform. But defund the police is probably one of the dumbest slogans, most hurtful slogans I've heard. Now, let's dive deeper into it, and let's be smarter about our statements, and also how do we fix law enforcement? It's not defunding them. I'll give you an example. What I believe in putting police officers in the best positions for them to be successful. And I'll give you an example. So when I was as a Capitol Police officer, I was a hostage negotiator. I was a crisis intervention officer. So I had a lot of specialized training. And we would go to Quantico, which is the FBI headquarters, and we got our training. and just say it was a class of 30. 28 were cops and 2 were social workers. Like I believe that maybe instead of defund the police, hey, let's fund other places where you can have 10 social workers in that class and maybe 20 cops. So when you hear a cop hears a call on the radio. Attention all units, I need a unit to respond to 1 First Street. There is a report of a 13-year-old not going to school. His mother called the police. Nobody is going to wants to go to that call. Like, why are the cops getting involved in a call like that? And a lot of times there are calls on the radio that cops don't want to go to. People hear the car chases and the gunfights and the burglaries and yes, cops are always answering up to go to those calls. But the calls for service, for help, hey, I need some help. Let's send a social worker out there. Now, if you change the facts or change the statement, I'll change my response. Hey, we have a 13-year-old in the house. His mother said he's locked himself in the room and he has a gun. All right. Now the facts have changed. Now let's send some law enforcement out there. So I think reimagining the police and putting cops in the best positions for them to be successful, I think that's the answer. I think that, and the Democrats missed that when they didn't push back hard enough. There's some that did. They didn't push back hard enough when the defund the police was being talked about. And they let the Republicans control the narrative about that. And members of the police department, they support not being defunded. So
yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up, because it's a slogan that I understand, and I understand strategically and tactically why some people use it. I think they're wrong, generally speaking. Yeah. Almost always. I almost always think it's more harmful than good, because any time that you are sloganeering the idea of taking something away from anybody, it is going to provoke an angry response. It's going to provoke a defensive response, which brings me to another slogan problem that I see. A lot of your sisters and brothers in uniform have adopted the slogan "Blue Lives Matter." That is something that I imagine that you look at differently as a black man in America than a white cop who didn't have the same life experiences as you growing up. Can you tell me how that slogan "Blue Lives Matter" impacted you and what it meant to you? Did you try to change people's minds and help them understand what it means to you, or did you kind of just let it go because it wasn't worth it?
Well, let's be clear about the response. Blue Lives Matter. It was a protest to people saying Black Lives Matter. So it was kind of like whataboutisms continue to show up instead of actually addressing the fact that, hey, Black lives do matter. And I'm talking about the slogan. There's a lot of things associated with maybe the organization of Black Lives Matter, which I don't know anything about. I don't know who the head is. Whether they have a board. I don't know. But the actual phrase Black Lives Matter is what I'm talking about now. And I think it's important to say, yes, Black Lives Matter. And I think we're clear. All lives do matter. And I see, it's so funny that this generation that we're in now, memes and GIFs are everywhere. And a meme kind of, I think, explained it the best that I've ever seen before. There were 5 houses in this meme. There were 5 houses. One of them was on fire. And this house had "My House Matters." But all the other houses that weren't on fire had "All Houses Matter." Wait, this house is on fire right now. So let's focus on the house that's on fire. Y'all are okay right now. Like, let's be clear. Y'all are all right now. This house is on fire. Let's deal with the house that's on fire. And All Lives Matter was a protest to a protest, which kind of just, it gets America at the core. What about me? What about me? But me. And I think that's unfortunately what we're seeing a lot as Americans at our core right now. It's kind of like, well, what about me? Instead of focusing on the people that can't even use their voice to say, what about me? Because they are so under attack. They are under attack, and their voices are being drowned out because they are minimalized, they're marginalized, and they are just being cast away as a afterthought. So, but as far as doing my job, like the Blue Lives Matter, yes. If there's a pandemic of law enforcement officers being targeted, we need to go ahead and confront that head on, while not diminishing another group that's saying, hey, we are under attack also. And it was very disingenuous, the Blue Lives Matter thing. And even like the thin blue line, all that stuff, like it shouldn't be a thin blue line. It should be a thick blue line that shouldn't have that has the full support of communities, that has the full support of organizations, because we're all working together for the same goal. We all want safe communities. We all want integrated in spaces where people thrive and can walk down the streets without having to worry about getting their purse snatched or mugged or whatever. We all want that. So it shouldn't be thin. It should be a thick line that a lot of people stand behind, that a lot of people support. But unfortunately, it's people like Donald Trump, it's people like Kristi Noem, like Peter Hegseth, that keep that line from being thick because they refuse to work with people to put the members of those organizations in the best positions to be successful.
I feel like I'm dating myself a bit, but the meme that you're talking about of the houses burning was said out loud in part of a track from Macklemore back in, I don't know, 2014, 2015.
Yes, I remember.
And I used to use that on Facebook to help friends of mine understand what Black Lives Matter want.
Sure.
What Black Lives Matter meant and why the idea of all lives matter, a Blue Lives Matter, a it's not, saying it's not just positive. It is taking things away. In the same way that defund the police is about taking things away, not giving more to someone else. At least that's the way it's perceived.
Yeah.
So let's talk for a minute about what you went through. On January 6th, which is what the world knows you for now, the worst day of your life. You were chased, you were harassed, you had people shouting horrible things at you. You got into physical altercations. And the last episode of Find Out podcast that I was on with you, you described how because you were carrying a rifle, you had to stay away from the crowd because you knew that they would grab it and they could turn it on you. Those people have all been pardoned.
Yeah.
So how are you dealing with that? What is accountability still possible when it comes to those specific people? I imagine, having been through warfare, which I think is very similar to what you experienced on January 6th. I imagine that you remember the faces of the people who assaulted you.
Yeah.
I imagine that you might even know their names and you might know who's been pardoned by name.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that? Is it possible?
I don't know what justice looks like anymore. I don't know. It's kind of like I'm chasing this invisible boogeyman, still fighting for it. Hell, there is currently right now even just a lawsuit that I have against the architect of the Capitol to hang the plaque up honoring the men and women of January 6th. They have refused to put a plaque up by following their own law. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I have a lawsuit going against it. And then we can say it's Mike Johnson, we could say it's Donald Trump, but all I know is the plaque is not up in its law. to be hung. So we're trying to seek some reprieve in court to get that done. But as far as what accountability with justice, I don't know. I think that we had an opportunity to get accountability on November 5th. I think that the election was more than just, well, for me, it wasn't just about not having tariffs. It wasn't just about having lower energy costs. It wasn't just about having affordable gas. All those things matter, sure. But I think for me, it was personal. It was about accountability, and that accountability that we didn't get from Donald Trump, that we did not get through the courts for the people who attacked my coworkers. We could have got that on November the 5th, and there would have been no chance. But unfortunately, we didn't, and we say to play the cards that you're dealt, and these are the cards that are in our hand. And we have to find a way to make these cards winning cards. And thankfully, hopefully, prayerfully, we have an opportunity in 2026 and another opportunity in 2028 to reject any and everybody that supports this individual. I mean, hell, there are people in Congress, that are running for our January 6th office, January 6th defendants that are running for public office. And we have to reject them. And maybe some will slip through the cracks, and it's heartbreaking to me. But you just don't stop and just say, all right, the hell with it. I did what I could. And I'm the type of person that's going to give it all he can until I don't have any more. Let's be clear. I'm exhausted now. Not in this second, but just having to talk about it almost 5 years later and having to bring it up and relive it every single day. It's so funny. People say, do you get PTSD? Do you get flashbacks? Ain't no flashbacks when it's currently on loop in your head. Like, a flashback is when you forgot about it and it's done, and then all of a sudden it comes back. But it's like a constant loop. You can't scroll anywhere on social media without seeing an image from January 6th, no matter what. But on offense, I love it. And I'm going to go on offense and stay on offense. Because that's what it takes. It doesn't need a lot of just defense, right? You have to actively work. Like, I'd say democracy is a verb. It's an action word, and it requires you doing something, actively participating in it, not just waiting back and responding. And we're seeing that in real time now.
A problem that Democrats have, in my opinion, is a focus on just restorative justice. Yeah. And I think that you have been completely denied restorative justice.
Sure.
There is, as far as I can tell, nothing that can happen to make you whole for what you have gone through, for what you experienced, for what you sacrificed. And you weren't sacrificing it by choice. You were sacrificing it because it was being taken from you on January 6th. It was your role. It was your duty. And I know that feeling. I think that Democrats don't focus enough on punitive justice. For me, that's what on offense means. It is kind of helping liberals, progressive, Democrats, whatever you want to call people on the broad spectrum of the political left. Sometimes you have to fucking punish people. Yeah. Sometimes you have to make it hurt. And we have tools in the law to do that. Yeah. And Republicans look at justice just as that. Aside from veteran treatment courts, I don't think that I ever see Republicans openly and strongly advocate for restorative justice to help victims.
We saw the Senate just recently during the funding bill that they finally passed.
You're right.
That to include a little caveat where they can get $500,000 or $1 million. That's the kind of stuff that you're talking. Then they are okay with it. We're like, wait a minute, wait, what?
They love restorative justice for them.
Exactly. And you know what? And I've been called a grifter, and I haven't made a penny off of this shit. Like, I am suing to hang a plaque. I am not suing for money. But there could have been civil lawsuits. The death threats and the harm, the security that I've had to bestow upon myself, and there have been. I could have. Why didn't I? I don't know. I didn't. I just focus on what's right and wrong. And I feel like you're right. And maybe the Democrats, we just focus on correcting a right or correcting a wrong instead of actually laying the hammer down, so to speak, so this can't happen again. Like you're right. You're 100% right. And I don't know why. Maybe because my bigger focus is on accountability and not made necessarily deterrence or whatever. But I don't know. But I agree with you. I agree with you.
Yeah, I worry about the young men of this country who, you know, I've mentioned before in this episode and previous ones about how young men who are serving in the military today, who are joining the military today at 18 years old, who are becoming police officers, who are going off to the academy in their early 20s, their entire teenage years at minimum were shaped by Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And that is their sense of normalcy. Do you think that is just baked in? Or do you think that there are things that we can do as a country to help young men who've watched lawlessness and greed be rewarded above all else in American politics?
Well, that's the thing. We have to punish it. You have to punish it, right? But like I said, we didn't punish it, and we had the opportunity to on November the 5th. And I think that's where the ultimate ego bruise would have been to Donald Trump. Not him winning in court, not him winning a lawsuit with a mediator. The ultimate punishment would have been majority of this country rejecting him. But we did not. We didn't. And that's got to be fuel for anybody, man. Listen, like if somebody majority of people tell you ask 20 people and 11 people tell you, hey, you're right in this situation, that's all I need to hear. The rest of y'all, the hell with y'all. I am right now. And you know what? There's been no greater validation for Donald Trump behaving the way he has and is than him winning the election.
Do you think that Donald Trump will ever face justice? He's still got open cases in some states. As far as I can tell, he's still engaging in overt corruption. Do you think that Donald Trump will ever face justice, or do you think he's going to go down in history as the most effective con man in history?
I don't know, man. I know I sound defeated when I answered that one because I really don't know. I mean, I have private thoughts that I'll never share out loud. But well, he won in the courts, right? You know, I don't. Maybe these poll numbers that are coming out is as much justice as we'll get. He leaves office with a 10% approval rating. I don't know. It's so infuriating to imagine that there's a possibility he won't, you know, especially with the Supreme Court allowing him to have immunity. And even if he didn't have immunity, he can pardon himself any moment now that he's president again for any federal crime. And I mean, I don't know, man. It's what I am thriving in now, and we have to focus on these issues to keep us engaged and in the fight. Because if I ran a whole whatever the hell I'm doing about let's get Donald Trump to justice, it wouldn't really go really far. But now I can do anybody that supports Donald Trump, anybody that enables, aligns with his agenda. You know what? It's kind of like, I can't get him, but you're the next best thing. So let's go. You're up.
Yep.
You know, Mike Johnson, it's your turn, or John Thune, or anybody, or all those people. So it's time to go after them. Politically go after them. I'm not suggesting any like vendettas it's crazy that we even have to say those kind of things because that's the environment that we're living in now where when I say go after somebody or let's attack them, I'm talking about politically, no physical attacks, period. Like no matter who it is. So yeah,
I remember the world that we lived in not too long ago.
Didn't
With
have
Sarah
to,
Palin,
we didn't have to say
you know,
those things, right? Yeah. We didn't need a disclaimer to say, hey, when I say let's go kick their ass, I mean like in the election, not like physically.
Yeah, yeah. And there was a time, I think, when people were like, "Oh, you're being too PC." Remember that before woke was the word that they used. They used to say PC, politically correct. They'd be like, "Oh, you're being too PC for criticizing Sarah Palin for going and putting a target list with like bullseyes, like crosshairs over districts." I think Gabby Giffords might have had a crosshair over her district, if I'm remembering my timing correctly. So I think you're onto something. Not just focusing on one target of Donald Trump, of being the ultimate con man, of being the man who's been so responsible for so much damage, but for legally and politically making it difficult and expensive for these extremists in office to continue operating under the status quo. I'm struggling with my words here because I almost said the mission of my nonprofit, Task Force Butler Institute, is to make it difficult and expensive to be a neo-Nazi, right? Yeah. using legal, social, and economic costs, imposing those on neo-Nazis. When I launched my organizations, Veterans Fighting Fascism, Task Force Butler Institute, nonprofit, 501c3, tax deductible. We can't do politics. It's part of the reason I started a podcast, because I can say things on a podcast that I can't say as a representative of those organizations. I did not imagine myself starting to think in this way, where that slogan, I want to make it difficult and expensive to be a neo-Nazi, I want to impose legal, social, and economic costs on these neo-Nazis, that I would have to apply the same exact thing to mainstream politicians. Yeah. It is because prior to January 6th, the Republican Party was bad. Yeah. They were fucked up, but they weren't what they are now. Yeah. This is different. So I want to try to end on a positive note.
Sure.
I've been sounding a little defeated. Yeah. To my listeners who know me and who have followed me for years, they know everybody comes to me for bad news. That's my job. I'm a professional. Yeah. You know, one of my closest colleagues runs one of her products is called the Cassandra Report, as in Cassandra of Troy. Always out there predicting the bad shit that's going to happen. No one believes her, tells her she's fucking crazy, and then all the bad things happen. Right? That is my professional role. It sucks. It's a bit of a downer. And what sucks even more is having to be like, I fucking told you so. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. Yeah. So what are you doing now to take care of yourself? Are people asking you that? Yeah, well, because I'm very vocal about my struggles. I've cried on national TV. I've celebrated on national TV. I've been through a whole rage. Especially anybody who watched the January 6th hearings, you see one moment a tear falling down my eye, or the next moment I'm hugging Sean Penn at a fucking January 6th hearing. So I've always had like all my emotions, so I'm very public with that. And I've struggled. I've talked about my struggles publicly with PTSD and moral injury. I've talked about it because I'm very conscious of it. I'm very aware that therapy is very important. I'm very aware that having a social circle, a friend circle around you, a support system is very necessary. And that's what I do. I surround myself with people who, and I'm not talking in an echo chamber, but I like-minded people. I lean on my friends. I lean on my family. And you know what? And if I'm having a bad day, I don't hide it. I acknowledge why I'm having it, and I try to get the solution. But as long as the good days continue to outweigh the bad ones, which they have been, obviously all things considered, like I'm not talking about the state of the country, right? I'm talking about my life, right? You know, I'm really looking forward to the holidays. I love Christmas time. I
love the new year. I just love moments to be close with people that you love. So I lean into those moments, and I embrace them. I look forward to them. And you have to, because it's kind of like, let's just say you're out there and you're on missions, right? And you're out, the world is crazy. And then you have an opportunity to link up with friends, and you come in and y'all huddle up and you brainstorm, you take a nice drink, or you get supplies, all to go back out into the wilderness, to go back into the crazy that you're going to endure. And I think that's what I do. I lean into my friends. I lean into people that I count on. And when I don't have to be on, I'm not on. I'm sitting here, I'm rambling because I'm just thinking about it, because it's been so good to me having a strong support system. Like I said, whether that be my sisters, my mother, my father, my friends, my daughter, people like yourself. It's just great sitting down and chatting with you, you know?
Harry, I don't think that a lot of people appreciate this, but being through traumatic experiences and dealing with them so publicly as I've done. You know, I came home from war almost 20 years ago and testified before Congress within 2 years about the horrific experiences that I went through in Iraq. And a lot of people, you saw the pain. It was very fucking clear. I mean, I was getting in like street fights at the time, so you could see I was a wreck just looking at my face. But I recognize now with hindsight that I'm a better person today because of all of the terrible shit that I went through. And I would not change my decision-making tree that led me to the worst experiences of my life, because I know that on the other side, the suffering is continued, to be fucking clear. Like 2 years ago, right now, I was unemployable. I was so fucked up. Like things just came back. So it still haunts me, but I have gotten the opportunity to help veterans, you know, obtain health care who had previously been denied it. I've helped veterans earn the GI Bill so that now it doesn't go away after 15 years like it used to. And Harry, I don't know if anyone's told you this yet, but I think you're a better person today than you were 5 years ago.
Well, I feel like it. Well, if not a better person, I'm definitely in a better space. I like to think that, like, the person that now life is a continual growth. You continually grow, and I think you always do. And then when you stop growing, you die. So always keep growing, guys. Never stop growing, and never stop trying to be a better person, as you should. But I just think it's a continual growth of the man that I am destined to be. And I don't mean that in some like foresight kind of way, like whatever. With this is all I'm sure. I'm not like destined to be king or nothing like that. I'm not saying that, but I just think it's just a continual growth. Life is hard, but we get through it the best we can.
Well, I've kept you for longer than I asked you, and I'm thankful
good, man. It was
for all
good
of
talk.
your time. Do me a favor real quick and just tell our listeners, tell our viewers where they can find you. Tell us about your podcast, your book, about Siren.
Yeah, I have a Substack called Standing Our Ground, O-U-R, Ground, which is a play on the title of my book, Standing My Ground, a Capitol Police Officer's Fight for Accountability in Good Trouble after January 6th. So check that out. And I also host two podcasts. One is called Pores and Perspectives on the Siren Network on Substack, and also Clean Up on Aisle 45 with my good friend Allison Gill, also known as Muller She Wrote, which I co-host a podcast with her. So check it out, and obviously on social media. I only use Blue Sky. I don't use Twitter anymore. It's like a cesspool over there.
Yeah, it's gross.
But Libra Dunn 1. Check me out, and anywhere you need good trouble, I'll probably be there. So,
all right, brother. Thank you so much for joining the podcast. Again, it was really important for me to get you on early, episode number 3. Thank you so much. Thank you for everything that you've done. Thank you for your service.
And to you, man. And to you, too.
Freedom isn't free. That phrase gets thrown around a lot in this country, usually by people trying to justify a war or distract from the real threats to our democracy. But what Harry Dunn reminds us is that fighting for freedom doesn't always mean putting on a uniform or even working for the government. It can mean showing up at a community meeting. It can mean voting. It can mean knocking on doors, talking to your neighbors, and refusing to stay quiet when democracy is under attack. Harry stood his ground on January 6th, and ever since that day, he's kept showing up, whether it's in front of Congress, on the campaign trail, or across the country working to elect pro-democracy leaders. He's helping build the kind of grassroots movement that can out-organize the forces of authoritarianism. You don't need to have worn a badge or carried a weapon to follow that example. You just need to decide that democracy is worth defending, and then act like it. If you got something out of this conversation, then do me a favor. Make sure that you're subscribed to On Offense on your preferred podcast platform. Please be sure to give us a 5-star rating and encourage your friends to listen to. That's how we break into the charts and get this show in front of more people who need to hear it. And if you want to keep up with what I'm working on or get deeper into the fight against fascism, go to weareonoffense.com. New episodes are released on Wednesdays, but paying subscribers to the On Offense Substack will get full video episodes as soon as I get them from my editors, before they're available anywhere else. If you want to keep up with other veterans fighting for this democracy, subscribe to On Offense on YouTube at VALOR Media Network. Follow at On Offense Pod everywhere on every social media platform and tell your friends about the show. Thank you for being part of this movement. I'll see you next time. On Offense is produced by Gina Kim as part of the VALOR Media Network. Let's go on offense.